Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Amazing podcast. I'm Twain Taylor, editor at Amazing, and we want to bring you the latest and the greatest from all of the different open source projects and the startups and even the enterprises that operate in this space, that is the cloud native computing and Kubernetes, this space. That's what we really obsess about and talk about week in and week out. And we hope you like all the content that we're bringing you. If you like more like this, head over to our website. It's amazic.com. That is amazic.com. We make sure to catch all of the event coverage, like all of the KubeCons and the other events that happen in the space. We write articles. We also put up job listings. So go and check out what's over there. I think you'll really like it. For this episode, I have with me someone from a company named Encore, Encore, and they're a startup in the space, talking about something that we've spoken about in the past, but I think they have a unique spin on it. So we're going to be broadly touching on ideas around platform engineering today, and we've had many vendors join us to talk about that idea in the past. But Encore actually has a unique spin on platform engineering, and they're not taking the usual route that a lot of the other startups and vendors are taking. And that's what we wanted to really highlight in this episode. So that said, I wanted to welcome to the show André Eriksson, who is the founder and the CEO at Encore, and he's here to tell us about Encore's story. Andre, it's great to have you with us. Thanks for joining us. How are you doing?
Thanks for having me. I'm doing great, thanks.
All right. Andre, we're curious to know about Encore's approach to platform engineering, but before we can really get into it, I was wondering if you can give us a little bit of background about who you are, what you've done before Encore, and what led you to founding Encore.
Sure. So before I founded Encore, I was a staff engineer at Spotify and building all kinds of, backends, distributed systems. I was responsible for a large part of Spotify's platform tooling for the Go programming language, which was the first language that Encore supported. And I was doing a lot of sort of company level technical strategy and systems design. And some of the sort of frustrations that Spotify felt, and it led to a very large platform engineering effort at Spotify, was around how do we leverage the cloud effectively, and how do we enable engineers to move quickly without having to deal with all of the complexity that comes with the cloud. And so what we've seen is essentially every company in the world is doing that. They're building platform engineering teams to sort of optimize that. And from my work at Spotify, I realized that this is something that, it doesn't really make sense for every company in the world to do the same thing. Not every company has Spotify's resources. Today Spotify is over 1,000 people employed in platform engineering alone. And that's obviously a massive investment. Yeah. And so there is a need for something that essentially can provide more of that out of the box. And that's what Encore is.
All right, really cool. Yeah, so so we've already gotten into like the keyword of platform engineering in your first response, and I wanted to just ask about some of the common challenges that you see startups face that makes them consider platform engineering, or to put it another way, what are some of the issues and challenges that organizations face that platform engineering is a good fit for?
Yeah, I mean, I think fundamentally what startups are all about is building a product and talking to customers. You're really searching for, at the early stages, you're searching for product market fit, and you want to move quickly and achieve that. And even beyond product market fit, you're really trying to move as quickly as possible on iterating on and improving your product. And really everything else is a distraction, you know? And this is where it gets tricky, because the cloud it's really designed for flexibility. It's the cloud providers, they are serving basically every company in the world at this point, at least every tech adjacent company in the world. And so they are designing their platforms to be as broadly adoptable as possible. They're very generic, they're very general purpose. And that means that they're not really designed for productivity, which is more about, how do we solve a specific use case really well? And these are in conflict, because what startups want is maximum productivity, and what the cloud providers want is to offer maximum flexibility, because they want to serve everybody. And so what startups end up doing is they end up sort of realizing that we need to optimize and invest in our own productivity to be able to move quickly. And obviously this is, on the one hand, it's desirable because the sort of default productivity you get from the cloud is not good enough. But it's also a waste, because every company is going through the same motion of doing the same sort of automation that everyone else is doing. And you have to do that because all of these tools are so generic. And so that's really the main sort of conflict and the tension that you face as a startup is you don't want to waste time on developer productivity because you want to build your product. But at the same time, you can't afford not to invest in developer productivity. And that's a real struggle, and that's what we're trying to fix. But that's really the main challenge with the cloud, I would say.
Interesting. So, interesting that you tie it back to the cloud vendors and how they're building a generic platform. But it seems like you're sort of hinting at there are layers to the tech stack, and the cloud vendors are probably building for a more lower layer, but whereas productivity and what startups need is probably in a higher layer. And this is where platform engineering comes in. Could you kind of define these layers a bit more for us? How do you picture these layers in the tech stack?
Yeah, I mean, typically platform engineering, as you say, it's really about taking, as we established, the cloud providers provide a very low level of abstraction. And then you have this whole suite of tools in the open source space that are tackling individual parts of the developer experience and the process of shipping software. And those are things like Kubernetes, you have Terraform for infrastructure provisioning, you have frameworks and libraries that you use for backend development, and so on. And what platform engineering is fundamentally is picking a set of tools that say, these are the tools that we're going to use at our company, and then building a platform around it to enable the other developers who are not building the platform to use said platform in a way that's more productive. So that's essentially, it's building an internal platform that is tailored to the specific needs of your own company. That's how I would characterize platform engineering.
Interesting. And in a sense, you're kind of saying the platform is something that pulls all of these different single purpose tools and even general purpose tools, pulls them all together and acts like kind of the glue that binds it all together. And I was wanting to ask, related to that, about just how organizations approach solving this problem. I'm assuming some of them take the route of do it yourself, build our own platform. That's one option that is there. And I guess others would take different routes. Could you tell us a bit about some of these different options that organizations have and how they can have how they can implement platform engineering, and even some of the missteps and mistakes that occur along the way.
Yeah, I think on a high level, there are three common approaches. If we start with an early stage startup, the sort of most common is either you sort of put your head in the sand and defer the problem. So you're saying, we're not going to invest in a platform. We're going to use the cloud, but we're going to sort of duct tape things together and fix things as we go. And that can be a good solution if you know what you're looking to ship. You really want to validate something quickly and you have no idea if it's going to work. It might be better to just not invest at all. Another approach is to adopt something that is more designed for small scale projects, and that can be something like Firebase or Superbase that are more designed around sort of here's a product that is designed for smaller scale products and projects.
Low code.
Yeah, exactly. And that can be really productive, especially if you know sort of the where you're going approximately, and you know that this will suit us for the foreseeable future. What often happens if you're successful is you outgrow those tools. And so at some point, even if you use those tools, you probably will move to the cloud sooner or later. And at that point, you're sort of back to square one, where then you have to make the decision again of, do we invest in platform engineering now, or do we just sort of duct tape things together? But those are the three main options that I see startups adopting.
All right. So tell us a bit about Encore's approach. You particularly were mentioning that Encore does do platform engineering, but there is a twist to it. Tell us a bit about that. What's your approach to platform engineering?
Yeah. So what Encore fundamentally is it's a combination of these two things. So if you look at startups, they want to build and ship product quickly. And Encore is a backend SDK that you use as a developer to write business logic. And that provides a layer of standardization for how you're expressing certain concepts, like defining APIs and using infrastructure like databases and so on. And the second part is a cloud platform that completely automates all the DevOps and platform engineering. But critically, it does that by deploying to your own cloud. So it's not sort of a separate vendor that you have to decide like, oh, we're going to use these ones instead of the cloud. It's designed to provide a remarkably productive developer experience, but in a way that deploys straight to your own cloud. So the goal is to sort of get the best of both worlds. You get the cloud and all the flexibility that entails, but you also get the productivity that comes from a really mature product that is you sort of can leapfrog this investment in internal developer platforms. So that's sort of the key idea.
All right, interesting. What comes to my mind though next is, how have you actually built and designed the product? Is it aimed at startups, or can even enterprises get value from it? If so, how? And also, platform engineering, generally ops tends to be more interested in platform engineering because it simplifies their job. But I also hear you saying that there's an aspect of local development IDEs that's involved in Encore, but that's more related to the developer experience. I mean,
Yeah.
again, something that ops is concerned about, but it directly impacts the developer. So I'm trying to kind of, see what have you designed Encore for, enterprise or startup, developer or ops? Where do you fit?
So what we're really trying to focus on is how can we provide the most productive developer experience as possible. And what we started with is, what are the problems that companies face when you're using the cloud? And those problems are everything from, how do I run my system locally? Because when you're adopting a lot of cloud infrastructure, that tends to get really complicated. To how do we provision and use cloud infrastructure? So things like databases and PubSub and secrets and so on. To sort of more use cases like, how do we ensure security? How do we ensure that backend services that use infrastructure don't have more permissions than they should? And we designed Encore to solve all of those problems in a way that's completely automated. And it does that by analyzing the source code that you are writing as a developer. So that's where this layer of standardization comes in, right? So because Encore provides an SDK that is very standardized, Encore can then parse and analyze the code that you write to be able to understand, what backend services exist, what API endpoints do they have, what infrastructure do they depend on, and so on. And it achieves this very rich level of understanding of your system. And with that understanding comes everything else. So that's how Encore is able to automatically provision infrastructure into your cloud and so on. And so because we started from the perspective of these are the pain points that companies face when you're developing with the cloud. And, I saw these firsthand at Spotify, even with an absolutely massive platform engineering investment. But it's an even bigger problem when you're an early stage startup because you haven't made that level of investment yet. And so this approach to backend development, it actually is really useful regardless of scale. Because the problems with the cloud, they are really, across the spectrum. As soon as you're adopting the cloud, these problems very quickly become very painful. With all that said, we are primarily focusing on the earlier stage startups today, because that's where we see we can add the most value in sort of enabling them to leapfrog and really be productive with the cloud from day one. We have large companies using Encore as well, but then it's typically, it's more by integrating Encore into your existing DevOps processes and your existing platform engineering approach. And that works very well too, but then you're sort of, you're only getting some of the value that Encore can provide, but that can still be really useful from the sort of local developer experience that Encore provides.
Interesting. Wow. I was wondering if you could give us a little demo of Encore and maybe even show us what the dashboard looks like.
Absolutely. It's always fun with a live demo. Can you see this?
Yep.
Fantastic. So what we have here is Encore for TypeScript, which we're launching this week. And what this is it's a very, very productive way of defining and building backends with TypeScript. So what you can see here is this is a very simple sort of hello world API for managing a to-do list. So here we have a task representing something that you want to do, and we have an API endpoint for creating a task. And you can see here that we import this function from Encore's SDK that is called API, and we call that to define a new API endpoint. And in this function, we define that The input is this data structure, which says that to create a task, you have to give us a title. And the return type is a task object itself, which has an ID, a title, and a Boolean representing whether that task has been done or not. And then here at the bottom, we've defined a database. And this database is an SQL database with these database migrations, which is just a very simple table with the tasks that you've added. And then inside of the body, we can just immediately start using this database. So we can say insert a row into the database with this title, and we say the done is false, and then we return the resulting object as a task. Now, with this, all you have to do is type Encore run, and Encore will parse and analyze all of the source code, start up the database, wire everything together, and it will be up and running. So you can see here that in just a second, everything is up and running. And this is always fun with a live demo. So we can open this up. And here we get to Encore's developer dashboard. And here you can see that immediately Encore is aware of this API endpoint that we've defined. So we can create a task here. We can call this API endpoint if I'm lucky and I didn't break something. Looks like I did indeed break something. Let's try again. The live demo gods are striking again. Give it a second.
Yeah.
I think I might have been running a development release. There we go. So let's see here. Need to fix the database query. There we go. So lesson, don't use a development release for live demos. So here we can see that now that it's properly up and running, I can call this API and I get the responses. I get live tracing information. So I can immediately go in here and I can look at what's happening when Encore is processing my request. You also get a service catalog, which includes automatic API documentation. So here you can see just by Encore analyzing the source code, you can see that it knows exactly what every API endpoint expects in terms of input, what it responds with, and so on. You even have an architecture diagram that represents your whole system, and this will automatically update as you're building multiple services and so on.
So can you go to any specific part of your architecture?
Sorry, say again?
Can you navigate to any part of your architecture from right here?
Yeah, so it's very simplistic now because it's so small. But once you add multiple once you add multiple endpoints, then you can see that now Encore is representing that now we have two different backend services. And once you can start to make API calls between them. So if we do this, Now the architecture diagram updates to represent that we have a dependency between services and so on. So it's updating in real time as we're building out the complexity of the system. And as you pointed out, all of this, Encore is aware of exactly where everything is located. So at any point, you can just jump straight to the source code if you're interested in sort of navigating down to the code level.
And what's snippets? So the last one.
Oh, so this is essentially a reference guide to how you can use all the different Encore features. So you can go in here and see, oh, okay, so if I want to define an API, I can just copy this and it's essentially a reference guide. Same thing with if I want to do things like defining a pub subtopic, I can just go in here, copy the relevant code, go back to my code base and paste it in. And now if I do Encore run, we'll see that now we have a pub subtopic. So that's really the developer productivity aspect of Encore is if you want to do something that leverages cloud infrastructure, it's really, at your fingertips, anything that you want to use. In just 1 or 2 lines of code, you can define a pub subtopic and start using it.
Okay.
And then once you're happy with this, you can push this to the cloud, and this will take you to Encore's cloud platform. So this is the platform engineering side of Encore, where Encore will deploy this to your own cloud, and it will compile it, it will run all the tests, and then it will do all the infrastructure provisioning. I actually need to have a test set up. So we'll give this a second. So now that we have a test, it will actually complete, and then it will provision all the infrastructure. Now it's uploading everything to the cloud, and then it will provision all the necessary infrastructure. And here we can see that immediately it's aware of the resources that we've defined in our source code. So it's provisioning the database, it's provisioning the pub subtopic, and then it's provisioning everything else like database roles, projects, DNS records, all the permissions in the database, and so on. And then as soon as all of this is completed, it will move on to actually deploying the release. So essentially, you just write business logic. Encore takes care of mapping that to cloud infrastructure.
Very cool. Yeah, so for everyone watching and listening, definitely go and play around with the product. It looks quite approachable. It seems very built for even small teams, especially for small teams, to really do complex stuff without much hassle and effort.
Yeah, especially if you want to start leveraging the cloud, you get this sort of, you can still use all the flexibility that the cloud offers without the complexity that comes with it. So now it's up and running in the cloud. And here in the cloud dashboard, you have access to everything from metrics to logging to tracing and metrics and all the architecture diagrams, cron jobs and PubSub, and all of this is available just at your fingertips.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the demo.
All right, nice. That's cool. I noticed that you currently support, I think, AWS and Google Cloud. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. Is Azure support coming up as well?
Yes, we have it mostly completed. We're just sort of doing the finishing touches on it. If someone is particularly interested in using Azure, just get in touch with us and we can work with you. We have sort of a private beta that we can give you access to if that's what you're interested in.
All right. Cool. I want to dig in to ask a bit about product market fit that you had mentioned earlier as well. And sounds like, so for startups, they're really looking to find product market fit. They're a bit even more earlier, even in the startup phase itself. Could you talk specifically to those kind of startup teams that are looking to find product market fit and how they can leverage Encore, how Encore could help them find it faster?
Yeah. So I want to say that's most of our customers. And what's really valuable that they see is just the fact that they can focus on sort of building their product. What, especially if you have more experience, you find that tools like Firebase and Superbase, these more low-code tools, they're fantastic, don't get me wrong, but they're targeting a different use case than what the cloud is targeting. And so if you're a startup and you know that we actually want to use the cloud, you very quickly get into this tension that we talked about earlier, where you want to invest in your productivity, but you don't want to take your eye off the ball and you don't want to spend time not building your product. And that's really where I think Encore can be the most valuable, is from day one, you can start using Encore. We have a very generous free tier, so you don't even need to start paying us. And you can just use it to build your product. And it really helps you by, you can add as much cloud infrastructure. Oops. You can really start to use as much cloud infrastructure as you want without sort of the fear that comes with without the complexity that comes with that. So everything from, very quickly what you find when you start to adopt Kubernetes and, you end up dealing with permissions, you end up having to figure out how do we automate all of this. And very quickly you end up with a huge backlog of, developer productivity tasks and how do we automate DevOps and these sort of things. And that's really where Encore shines. Sorry about the dog.
Very cool. Oh, okay. Yeah, no worries. As you wind down, I want to ask about looking ahead the next 1 to 2 years or so. What are you keeping an eye on in this space? How do you see it changing, evolving, and what excites you the most? What's on the horizon?
So obviously, what we're launching today with Encore for TypeScript and so on is super interesting because it exposes a whole new audience to sort of the benefits of Encore. That's super exciting. We are going to expand on the language support even more later this year. So that includes Python for sort of more AI machine learning.
That's a huge space.
Yeah. So that's obviously something that we are looking at very carefully is how can we enable companies like a lot of our customers today are already using AI and machine learning. So we want to expand on what use cases Encore supports to sort of enable companies building AI and machine learning related applications to leverage Encore for those. That's sort of the near term that excites us the most.
Nice, nice, really interesting. All right. Before you go, Andre, just a question to get to know you a bit more. Tell us a bit about yourself and what you'd be doing if not for your job as founder and CEO at Encore. What would your alternate career path be?
Oh, it's a very, very good question. I growing up, I was very much into soccer. So I was one of the
Oh,
one of
wow.
the we were a team up here in northern Sweden, and that was a lot of fun. I think these days I'm getting a bit too old to be doing
Mhm.
something so physical. So probably, I don't know. I'm getting more and more interested in more on the sort of climate tech side. So I would probably be doing something in technology, but more sort of climate related, most likely.
Okay, okay. In what position do you play in soccer?
I was a goalkeeper.
Oh, okay. So you're one of the tall guys then.
Yes. I mean, here in Sweden, most of us are pretty tall, but I was up there. Yeah.
Okay, okay. Follow up though, who's your favorite goalkeeper of all time?
Ooh, it's a very, very good question. Um, I'm. It's been too long since I kept track of. I've lost the name. What's the? We had a very famous. When I was growing up, Sweden in the 1994 um, uh, uh, World Cup. Sweden placed third, I think, and we had a very, very famous goalkeeper, at least here in Sweden, called Thomas Ravelli, and he had this
Oh,
very, very fun. He's very famous for his dance when he saved. He was sort of like saving the match, the bronze match. So that would be my pick.
all right. Yeah, I haven't heard of him. I'll go look up his dance for sure. All right, Andre. Thanks so much for joining us today. It was a pleasure talking to you and a really cool product that you guys are building. I want to wish you the best. And do come back over here and talk about things when you launch your Python for AI and all of those things, the new features that are coming up. Head over here and tell us about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. And to all of our viewers and listeners, we hope you enjoyed this conversation. Go and check out Encore, play with the tool. And especially if you're early stage, I think this is something you really need to find product market fit. So go check out Encore. All right. Till the next conversation, we'll see you. Bye-bye.